Horror Lies.
From Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe with, in effect, is my final review here at BodyBags, week 582. Yeah, I had to do one last look. Why not, for fun? It is number 322 for me, though, here at BodyBags. A time that stretches 6 years. You have to go back to November 14th of 2018 when I uploaded my very first review number 1. Man, that's a long time ago. The Thing from Another World, 1951, James Arness. And I've often wondered along the pathway of my time at BodyBags if I would not go back and relook at that on my way out. But you have to go back to May 13th, 2018 for Derek's last final video or review for BodyBags. In week 245, D. Bourget 86, as you may know him, he reviewed Shin Godzilla on his way out the door. And so I thought about that not too long ago, and I thought, you know, how about -1? Let that be my exit review, and it'll give me a chance to throw a few nods over to Derek. Derek, I don't know if he hasn't really been as active. I know he's busy, and just all of us got so much stuff going on, and some of us more than others, and you know, that in part went into effect in terms of our decision to allow BodyBags to just finally have run its course. Which, if you've already seen the video that dropped, in fact, that is what we have done. This is the last week of BodyBags. In terms of our regular scheduled reviews, we're going to continue to, work on the collaborative thing and see where that leads us. But in terms of expecting a video to drop every day, that's just not going to happen anymore. Many of us in the group, our lives are just so, we're busy. There's no other way to put it. We're busy. Most of us all have kids, and if not, we're still busy. But Derek, I wanted to speak to him real quick, and you'll have to forgive me, but this is my last review, so if this goes a little long, then it is what it is. It's the last time I'll ever get a chance to really talk to anyone in BodyBags via this format. So Derek is probably, if you saw the video I dropped on Sunday, which today, in fact, is Sunday. I'm recording my final review for BodyBags on a Sunday, and it'll drop on Wednesday as normal. Derek is, became a big part of the 22 Shots Moods of Horror, and I don't know if I ever really said this to him out loud, but, he was a real driving force in my refining my love of Italian cinema. That really does go back to the days when I was a kid, renting videotapes and discovering for the first time the world of Italian cinema with the help of Fangoria, Gore Zone, and other magazines, of course. Of course, back then that was our internet, right? I mean, I was born in 70s, so, by the time the 80s hit, I was a perfect age. But, in terms of my rediscovery, Derek, and I know it's not his only genre that he's locked into, but Italian cinema is something that he has or had still locked into. And a lot of his reviews, man, just would remind me, whether they were giallos or anything Fulci related, Argento, whatever it was, caused me to, in many times, pick up a film I didn't have and really begin building my Italian, but also South Korean film, Asian cinema. Now, I know, Glenn plays a big part of that as well. He's got a love for that. But Derek also did. And I'll never forget when part of the reason why I reviewed 13 Assassins so long ago, and a few others, was because of him. And so, his love for cinema, and specifically, be it South Korean or Asian cinema, but Italian cinema specifically, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Derek. Just for all the work that you poured in to your reviews and to podcasts and all that you have done. stuff's not easy, and especially if you really have a heart for it and really care for it. I mean, you do put an awful lot of work into it, and so my hat is off to Derek, and of course his channel, which, by the way, I dropped a link to Shin Godzilla, so you can see that. You ought to see that, and the rest of his channel, and all that he is there. The other thing I want to mention real quick is, as I exit BodyBags, as BodyBags has run its course, a few things. And in terms of my own personal love for horror, of course, you see my collection kind of sort of behind me. That won't change. I'll continue to collect, and whatever opportunities avail themselves, make myself available to those opportunities from time to time, in terms of just talking horror. But one of the things that drives me is listening to others talk about horror, whether it's just the reviews here or our collaborative efforts here at BodyBags. There's a number of podcasts that I have really fallen in love with, and I'm just going to share a few of them with you, and you can just pause this at any time, write them down, check them out. The Bloody Pit is a big one. Horror Planet, the Star Trek franchise, as it's continuing, Space 1999. I mean, there's just tons of great pod. Of course, that's Rod Barnett. Is it Barnett? I hope I said that right. But the Horror Planet Adrian was with him on that one, and it's just good stuff, man. And as an extension of that, the Yamane-hakase, Tombs of the Blind Dead franchise, the work in that is, and plus they've got commentary tracks on certain Blu-ray releases, which is always awesome. Wild Podcast, Adrian's podcast, Planet of the Vampire is freaking awesome. General Witchfinders is a new one. Quatermass trilogy, they've covered as a little British horror. That's freaking, I love General Witchfinders. Eli Ross, History of Horror, of course. Interviews, Rob Zombie comes to mind. There's a ton of others. Postmortem with Mick Garris is another one. Rob Zombie, Carpenter Hooper. And then Hysteria Continues. It would be not good if I didn't mention them. Stage Fright, great pod on Stage Fright. They've been around forever, and they have also got commentary tracks on new released movies, whatever. And of course, if you want to hear a good pod on Godzilla -1, Podzilla, for pretty much anything and everything related to Godzilla and its films. So anyways, just a few to share with you. Looking back, I didn't really put a lot of thought into this, but I just went ahead and grabbed 5 reviews over the span of 6 years that I just remember that were the quickest to just pop in my head in terms of just, boy, those were fun to do. Cannibal Holocaust, that was a real surprise to get into that one. Cat in the Brain, Fulci, that was a real surprise. Angst was a great review. I really do remember that one. And then House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, and of course, this is my final one. So I hope this is one that I remember finally looking backwards, having moved on down the line. I think those were the big things I wanted to mention real quick. And so let's get into this real quick. My final review. This is easily my movie of the year. 2023 Godzilla -1. It is a Takashi Yamazaki directed film, wrote, played a big part in the special effects. This is just a real passion thing. His love for Godzilla knows no bounds. He had a big part to do with the Godzilla ride. And, -1, we went to the theater to see it. And by the way, I didn't even mention, if there's any way you can get your hands on this Blu-ray release of Shin, this is such a great movie. It's getting harder to get your hands on unless you're region free. But anyways, got the 4K of Godzilla -1. Of course, as I was about to say a second ago, of course I took the boys, saw that in the theater. That was epic. Still is. A lot that can be said about -1. I don't even really know where to begin. This is my Godzilla film. This is mine out of the entire franchise. This is the tipping point of what really in effect has made me, sometimes we joke and we about, are you a King Kong fan, Godzilla fan? Where your loyalties lie? Well, I can honestly say mine are Godzilla from here on out. I'll always love the original King Kong. And for what that meant in the early days of filmmaking, the achievement of it, right? But Godzilla, man, it's always been there. And, the original 54 film, the original Japanese film, not the 56 Americanized crap. Although, I did review that recently, and there is things to be recognized by that particular effort. And you just go a few reviews back to hear my thoughts on that. But -1, this is the one I walked out of the theater and I thought out loud, I am a Godzilla fan. I've always been a Godzilla fan. I just didn't know it. And it took Yamazaki's incredible effort for under 15 mil. He has made Hollywood just look stupid with the quality of filmmaking that is inherent in this piece of work. Nothing, you really have to look hard to see what compares to this. And I mean, it's in the sense of the whole picture, the whole picture, the writing of it, the character arcs. You care about these people from beginning to end. It even leaves the door wide open for the continuation of the story without necessarily needing there to be one. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever see an extension of Shin, but we probably will see an extension of -1. And I really do hope Yamazaki is back on in the director's seat for that sequel, because boy, if it can come anywhere near the level of his first effort, it will be amazing to see. And of course, you got the black and white cut of it. You've got already a plethora of releases. Finally, we get releases. And of course, if you don't have a release of it, a physical media copy of it, Netflix does have the black and white cut as well as the color cut. You definitely need to see it if you haven't seen it. Really, the story a little bit is Shikishima is really the main protagonist, the main character of this, but he's complemented by a few very intriguing characters. Tachibana, for one, lead mechanic on the island base at Odo. Noriko, girl that he binds himself with when he first gets home, and it's a rebuilding effort of just not Japan, but it's a rebuilding effort of his life that has been damaged, so seriously damaged by his ineffectiveness of following through on being a good kamikaze, which he does not. And yet his life is meant to be that much more. And it is one of the best character arcs I have seen in a very, very long time. Tachibana, this movie is bookended by a lot of moments that you begin with, you end with. There are moments within this film that you look at and you're like, my God, that is like staring at a incredible painting. I think of when Godzilla unleashes his nuclear his heat ray, and this mushroom cloud in Ginzu. This is when you are thought to have lost Noriko. Of course, the end has its own surprises, which is so freaking great, because in almost any other movie, if you try the same thing, you're just sort of going to be left there going, I figured so. But in this case, you're pleading for it. You want it to be, but that's part of the door that's left wide open for an extension of the story, and one that is very intriguing. One I think Yamazaki is going to have fun with. Right. Akiko is the little girl that together they sort of represent this this building, this experiment in building a family post World War II in the early days, and where Shikishima probably should have just married her. He is so guilt-ridden, and it's not so much his inability to be a good kamikaze, although that plays a strong part because of how he's accepted or not accepted upon arriving at home in the aftermath of his own parents having been killed. Sumiko, who greets him, is not too thrilled to see that he is alive, because he should have given his life for the homeland, for Japan. And she blames him initially for their catastrophic failure, men like him. And so he's just really faced with a lot of just guilt. But the big part of it, the guilt, is what happens on Oto early on. And it's a brilliant way to start a movie. I mean, obviously you get the Toho stuff, right? But then the minute the film begins, you're sort of from the perspective of the plane flying into Oto Island. It's so awesome, man. The cinematography in this movie is unparalleled. I mean, obviously you can find other good examples, right? But for the moment, when faced with Tachibana, who brings him the news that, joy of downtime, kamikaze. Although I can't seem to figure out exactly what you thought was wrong with the plane, because we found nothing wrong with the plane. But Tachibana initially, he'll come up to him a little bit later and he'll be like, you know what? I got your back, buddy. I don't worry about me. I got your back. The problem comes that night when Godzilla arrives. A very pre-nuclear affected Godzilla arrives on the island to wreak havoc. It is upon Shikishima to unload his plane, his 20 mil, I think it is, and he freezes and he can't bring himself to pull the trigger, and in so doing, pretty much everyone on the island dies. That is what Tachibana holds over him. And that guilt is so heavy. It keeps Shikishima from doing the things that he ought to do, and yet it is a driving force towards the only appropriate end that there is, and claiming a redeeming moment, the redeeming moment, one that is rewarded with one of the great final moments of the film. And, be it the flashback to a moment spent with Tachibana at his plane, or, look, I'm just going to say it out. I cried multiple times in this movie. This movie draws tears out of me. And this movie is so powerful in its underlining message of why war in general ought to be not tolerated, but nuclear war especially ought not to be tolerated, because the consequential effect will be forever. You can't outlive the consequences of a nuclear war. It took forever and a day, and they still live within the shadow. Japan still lives within its shadow of 2 atomic bombs being dropped. I'm not going to get into the morality play of that. But -1 serves as a really, maybe the perfect complement of this movie. Another movie that served to sort of raise the red flag of begging the question, what are we doing? What are we doing? And -1 comes along and says, if you want to know what Oppenheimer looks like in the real, then just take a look over here, because this is what it looks like. And although Yamazaki has said that he would love to reply as a film director to this film specifically, he doesn't feel like -1 is that reply, but I feel as though it is a very relevant complementary effect, I guess, of Christopher Nolan's work and what he is trying to say. He sort of gives the exclamation point on what it is saying. And Yamazaki recently said, or I can't remember when they gave the interview, but maybe both films, he was asked if this were planned at all, and of course no, it's coincidence, and yet he's observant enough to recognize the cultural relevance of the fact that both these films arrived in the same year. There's a reason that happened. The reason is we ought to be standing up and shouting to at the tops of our lungs. Why is it that now more than ever in my entire lifetime, and I was born in 1970, I even, lived through the end of the Cold War and the fall of the Soviet Union. Why is it now that we got lunatics on stage that want nothing more, seemingly at least, to pull the levers of nuclear holocaust without any thought of the consequence? And these two films, minus one, I think especially, begs the question why. And it also works to plant a seed of within each and every one of us. To never have been in war is something to be proud of. One of my favorite quote from the movie. That is something to be proud of. That is not something that many today who are just happy to pull any lever they can pull and allow war to just run havoc. These people are a generation or two away, too far away from those who brought atomic warfare into our planet, into our society, and they have no idea. They may think they know what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing. So, anyways, minus one. Here's some. So anyways, real quick, I know we're 21 already, but this is it. This is the last time I'm ever going to say. So you're either going to follow me to the end or not. In essence, this is the story of Shikishima and his just wanting to live. All he wants to do is live. And that is a gift that in part Tachibana must give. And so a part of this arc involves early on Shikishima finding work on a land or a mine-sweeping boat. In so doing, as he's building new relationships and friends, Noda. I love, man, he's one of my favorite characters in this movie. The guy who schemes up the great plan, right? How are we going to wrap these canisters around Godzilla? How are we going to get him to be like sunk down to the trench and then whisked right back up, and then hopefully in the end be able to get the upper hand and put this behemoth down? How are we going to defeat nuclear war? How are we going to usher our society into a much more peaceful place? This all falls on but it falls on citizens, not the military, on citizens to carry the plan through. And really, that is a deeper message in this movie, is what are people like me and you going to do to raise a voice against not just war in general? Obviously, there's a time and place for war, unfortunately. It's just the world we live in. But it ought to be restrained, right, in terms of how it's carried out. We should never, ever, 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 ever witness a day again that Nagasaki and Hiroshima both faced in the closing moments of World War II. Those days should never be revisited ever, ever again, ever. And yet, many of us live in a bit of fear that those days, in fact, will be revisited, but on a much more grander scale, a horrifying scale. I hope not. I hope not. And in part, film is supposed to encourage good exercise of our mind and our thought and how we view the world around us, how we view people around us, and our relationships that we build. And not every film is good at that, but much film is good at that. And it's up to us to take those moments, make them apply to our life, and work in our life that we might be better for it. And minus one is the perfect movie for you to watch and to sit back and think, how can I live my life better? How can I do things better? Even in the small little corner of the universe that I inhabit, my home, my work, whatever, right? I don't know. There's some great moments, man. Great moments. The black and white is great, but this is one of the rare times. I love black and white. I love, Darabant's The Mist black and white cut, Fury Road, that black and white cut. Generally speaking, I prefer the black and white cut when they come to us handcrafted, paleted from a collection of silvers and grays and blacks and be it what it is. This is one of those rare moments, though. I don't know if it was just rushed or what, but I probably at the end of the day prefer the color over the black and white, although I appreciate the black and white, and someday I will own the black and white. I wish they could have easily thrown it on here, and they didn't. There is another 4K release coming down the pike that does throw the black and white cut on there as well as the 4K cut. I don't know if the black and white cut is in 4K. It should be. But anyways, that's just something to be mentioned on by the side. Noda, he is such a fun character. The little girl Kiko is just so absolutely adorable. There are moments that it's just heart-wrenching, and the movie just does such a phenomenal job of pulling you along for the ride. But it doesn't want you to leave empty-handed. It wants you to carry something with you from your experience with it. If you've engaged with it, if you can engage with film, we ought not ever to walk away empty-handed. We should walk away with something, right? Film really is the equivalent of modern-day philosophers. Some are good and some are bad. Some mislead, some realign us to where we ought to be. Some are just plain fun, and it's not meant to do either or whatever. But film is just enjoyable. I love film as a medium, as an expression, artistic expression, and it's there where I'll just wrap up and end with -1 is. It is the movie of the year. It is 10/10. I don't know when there's the last time I ever rated a film, but I'm just going to say, I'm going to go off on a tiny limb and just say 10/10. It is a masterpiece. It'll be a film that's remembered forever. And I hope in a small part will convince some why we need to angle ourselves away from the catastrophicness of Total War. And perhaps maybe its sequel will continue the messaging along those lines. That moment where we get to see the montage of the nuclear testing in Bikini Atoll is really cool, and you see Godzilla's eye open. The regenerative effect, the CGI, and this is like one of the first times where we don't see somebody in the suit, right? Masterfully done. The CGI, it's a rare moment when you can say CGI is masterfully done. It's just so much to love. I love every frame of this film, every moment of this film. I just, yesterday, it was maybe my 5th or 6th viewing, and I was still, tears were coming. I just love everything Yamazaki brought to the table on this experiment. And it's one that will be a very important part, I think, of how we look at things. I hope so. Anyways, thank you for all of you out there who have given BodyBags your attention. All of us collectively or individually, however you went about it. For those of you who followed me for these last 322 reviews, thank you. Appreciate that. Any attention you can give to my channel, I appreciate that too. But I just appreciate it. It's been a great long run. One that is definitely longer than I anticipated or thought it would be. Nearly, or is it twice as long as Derek's? I don't know, man. I don't know. But thank you, Derek, for all your contributions. And any prior BodyBags member who sees this, know your work is appreciated. All that you gave to this channel is seen a long run from day number 1 with Spider Baby to, in effect, Lonnie will have the last say on BodyBags in terms of our regular dropped review. Lonnie our Friday reviewer, will have the last and final say. And I do appreciate him. I appreciate all the guys that carried us across the finish line in terms of how we decided to bring this to an end, or at least this aspect of it to an end. And so I hope you understand. I hope you applaud the many, 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 many hands that have contributed to BodyBags over the years. I have Letterboxd this whole run, this 11-year run in Letterboxd. Every single review, every single link, what every week was. And so it's there forever. It's there forever. As long as we have internet, a grid, all that wonderful stuff. If you've never seen -1, you really, you could do worse than watch this Christmas Day, and let the experience be a Christmas present of sorts to yourself. My boys love it. My boys love it. We love it in this house, and very much looking forward to Yamazaki's return, I hope, in the director's chair on this. So with that being said, we're about 30, a little over 30 in. It is what it is. It's the last one. So as always, my Bills hit the TV today at 4:25 playing Detroit. Looking forward to seeing that. My Dogs, of course, won the SEC championship game. Looking very much forward to our playoff run. And who knows how this year is going to end up for the Dogs and for the Bills. Maybe I'll luck out and it'll all end in a very sweet way. Again, thank you. Cannot be said enough. Thank you. It's been a privilege. It's been a pleasure. It's going to be weird not preparing for a review. It's just going to be weird, but it is what it is. We move on, and so we do. As always, go Bills. Good night. And Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We're out. That's it. Gone. Yeah, we're done. We're done. Here we're done. All right. See ya.
This is not a dream. Not a dream. We might be useful to you.